The thunderstorm that hammered Fort Apache Junction turned the desert base into a maze of mud and steel. Lightning illuminated the sprawling command complex, while rain drummed against armored vehicles and concrete barriers. Through this chaos, Dr. Maya Chen walked with measured steps toward Alpha Gate, the fortress's most secure entrance. She wore a simple gray pantsuit that had seen better days, her black hair pulled into a utilitarian ponytail. No jewelry, no makeup. Nothing that would draw attention except for a small, unremarkable badge clipped to her jacket pocket. In her weathered leather briefcase were documents that could reshape military intelligence operations across 3 continents, but to the guards manning the checkpoint, she looked like another bureaucrat seeking shelter from the storm. The base hummed with barely controlled energy. Apache Junction housed the military's most classified drone operations center, coordinating strikes across multiple theaters of conflict. Every vehicle, every person, every piece of equipment passing through Alpha Gate carried the potential to alter the balance of global warfare. The responsibility weighed heavily on everyone stationed there, creating an atmosphere of hypervigilance that sometimes blinded them to threats hiding in plain sight. "Ma'am, you can't enter without proper authorization," Sergeant Rodriguez called out as Maya approached the security barrier. The young Marine's voice carried the polite firmness of someone trained to deny access to unauthorized personnel, regardless of their apparent importance. Maya silently presented her badge. Rodriguez squinted at it through the rain, then frowned. "This is just a civilian audit badge. You'll need military escort authorization to..." His radio crackled with an urgent message about incoming aircraft, cutting him off. "Wait here," he instructed before jogging toward the communications tower. From his elevated command post, General Marcus Stone noticed the civilian woman standing motionless in the rain. 28 years of military service had taught him to identify potential security risks, and unexpected civilian visitors during active operations definitely qualified. His expression hardened as he watched her studying the base's defensive positions with what seemed like professional interest. Who authorized a civilian audit during Operation Blackout? He barked at his aide, Captain Williams. The captain scrambled to check the day's security briefings. "No audit scheduled, sir." She just appeared. Stone's jaw tightened. For months, he'd been battling Pentagon bureaucrats who questioned his drone program's efficiency ratings. They sent endless streams of analysts and oversight specialists, each one convinced they could improve operations designed by combat veterans. His base had achieved a 97% mission success rate, the highest in the military, and he wasn't about to let some civilian consultant undermine that achievement. "I'll handle this personally," he declared, straightening his uniform as he descended toward the checkpoint. The general's approach drew attention from personnel throughout the compound. His reputation for dealing with unwelcome oversight was legendary among the ranks. Junior officers often gathered to watch General Stone educate civilian inspectors about the realities of military operations. Today would be no different. Maya noticed his purposeful stride, but maintained her silent vigil. Rain continued to soak her clothing, yet she showed no discomfort or impatience. Her dark eyes tracked movement patterns around the base, with the calm assessment of someone accustomed to evaluating security systems under adverse conditions. "This is a restricted military installation," Stone announced, his voice carrying the authority of absolute command. "Identification and authorization, immediately." Maya pointed to her badge without speaking. Stone leaned closer, examining it with theatrical skepticism before allowing himself a derisive snort. "A civilian audit badge," he said loudly enough for nearby personnel to hear. "Let me guess. The Pentagon sent another efficiency expert to tell us how to run military operations." Several soldiers paused their duties to watch, sensing entertainment value in the confrontation. Stone's legendary intolerance for bureaucratic interference had provided numerous memorable moments over the years. "Listen carefully," Stone continued, his voice dripping with condescension. "This base coordinates live combat operations in 7 countries simultaneously. We don't have time for civilian consultants who think warfare can be improved with PowerPoint presentations and cost-benefit analyses." Maya maintained her neutral expression, making no effort to defend herself or explain her presence. This apparent passivity only increased Stone's irritation. "Not much of a talker," he observed with mock sympathy. "That's probably for the best. Military operations require precise communication, something they apparently don't teach in whatever civilian agency sent you." Lieutenant Colonel Torres approached with obvious discomfort, having recognized something about Maya's badge that Stone had missed. "Sir, perhaps we should..." "Not now, Torres," Stone cut him off. "The lady needs to understand how real military bases operate. A communications specialist hurried over with an urgent message, but stopped abruptly when she saw Maya up close. Her eyes widened in recognition, before she quickly retreated, without delivering whatever information she'd brought. Stone's phone vibrated in his pocket. He glanced at it, noting a secure message that simply read, "Stand by for priority arrival. Presidential authority." The timing seemed coincidental, unrelated to the civilian audit situation he was managing. "As I was saying," Stone continued, turning back to Maya, "this installation processes intelligence that shapes global security policy. Your audit committee doesn't have the clearance level to evaluate our operations, let alone suggest improvements." Maya finally spoke, her voice quiet but carrying unexpected authority. "Your assessment may be premature, General." The simple statement hit Stone like a challenge to his command. "Premature? Ma'am, I've commanded successful military operations longer than you've probably worked in whatever civilian agency sent you here." The distant sound of rotors cutting through the storm drew everyone's attention. A formation of military helicopters appeared through the rain, flying in tight formation toward the base's secure landing zone. Stone frowned, checking his watch. No aircraft were scheduled during the current operational window. 3 black helicopters with presidential markings descended through the storm, their precision formation indicating the highest levels of military expertise. They landed exactly where Maya stood, their rotor wash creating a whirlwind of rain and debris around the checkpoint area. From the lead aircraft emerged Agent Reynolds, instantly recognizable as the commander of Presidential Security Operations. He approached Maya with measured steps, water streaming from his protective gear. "Director Chen," he said with unmistakable deference. "Phoenix authorization confirmed. You're cleared for full base assessment." The silence that followed was deafening. Every eye moved from Reynolds to Maya, then to General Stone, whose expression had frozen in mid-contempt. Stone's gaze dropped to the badge he had so dismissively examined moments earlier. Now, with focused attention, he saw what he'd missed, the platinum edges and microscopic presidential seal that marked the Phoenix Protocol, the military's most classified intelligence oversight system. Only 12 people in the entire government possessed such credentials. The personnel who had been anticipating entertainment now stood at rigid attention, their expressions shifting from amusement to alarm as the implications became clear. Agent Reynolds presented Maya with a secure briefcase, marked with classification levels beyond most military clearances. "Your preliminary findings have been confirmed, Director. Proceed with comprehensive evaluation." Maya accepted the briefcase with a slight nod, then turned to Stone. "General, your base has been operating with compromised security protocols for the past 6 months. 4 critical vulnerabilities have developed that I identified within 15 minutes of arrival." Stone opened his mouth, but no words emerged. His secure phone rang with the distinctive tone reserved for the highest levels of command authority. "Sir, it's the Secretary of Defense," his aide whispered urgently. As Stone took the call, his face drained of color with each word from Washington. The conversation was brief but devastating. "Listen to everything Director Chen tells you. National security depends on immediate compliance. Your career depends on how quickly you implement her recommendations." When Stone ended the call, every officer present had snapped to attention, their salutes now directed at Maya. The storm continued around them, but no one seemed to notice the rain anymore. "I'll need immediate access to your drone operations center," Maya said to Stone's executive officer, "and assembly of all department heads in the secure briefing room within 10 minutes. Inside the base's most classified facility, Maya conducted a systematic evaluation that revealed security flaws so fundamental they threatened the entire global drone program. Without notes or hesitation, she demonstrated vulnerabilities that could have been exploited by enemy intelligence services. "Your satellite communication protocols have a 12-second encryption gap during frequency transitions," she explained, displaying the base's own operational data on secure monitors. "During this window, your drone coordinates are transmitted in vulnerable formats." Officers who had been smirking at her earlier now frantically documented every recommendation, implementing changes without question. "Your personnel access system uses biometric scanners with outdated software that was compromised in the Tehran incident 4 months ago," she continued. "Any intelligence service with access to that data can fabricate authorization codes." The briefing room had transformed from a routine meeting space into the epicenter of a national security crisis. What had begun as Stone's attempt to dismiss an unwelcome civilian had become an emergency session to prevent potential catastrophe. "Most critically," Maya said, bringing up classified imagery that made several officers shift uncomfortably, Your drone flight patterns have become predictable. Enemy forces in 3 separate countries have adapted their movements to avoid your surveillance windows. General Stone stood silently at the back of the room, processing the magnitude of what had been revealed. The call from the Secretary of Defense had been brutally clear. Maya Chen was director of the Phoenix Protocol, the military's most classified oversight system. Her operational authority exceeded that of most generals, and her security clearance was higher than his own. As the briefing concluded, fragments of context emerged through whispered conversations. Maya had apparently warned about these exact vulnerabilities in classified meetings with senior military leadership months earlier. Warnings that had been dismissed by officers, including Stone himself, who considered civilian oversight an unnecessary interference with successful operations. The Pentagon assumed theoretical assessments were sufficient, one aide whispered to another. Director Chen insisted on operational verification. Did anyone know she was coming? Phoenix never announces. That's the entire point. A memory surfaced in Maya's mind herself in a sterile Pentagon conference room, pointing out these same vulnerabilities to a panel of senior officers who barely concealed their impatience. Then later in a secure White House facility, the president's grim expression as she explained the risks. I'll need to verify these vulnerabilities personally, she had told him. Complete operational assessment with no advance warning. Not even to the base commanders? Especially not to the base commanders, Mr. President. Real security requires real testing. As Maya prepared to leave with the presidential convoy, General Stone approached her, his earlier arrogance completely absent. Director Chen, he said, voice lowered so only she could hear. I owe you a profound apology. Maya regarded him with the same steady gaze she'd maintained throughout. You owe your personnel better leadership, General. Begin by listening to Lieutenant Colonel Torres, who tried to alert you during our initial encounter. Stone's eyes widened in recognition of his earlier dismissal of Torres's attempted warning. He recognized my Phoenix credentials immediately, Maya continued. His attempt to inform you was appropriate protocol. That kind of awareness deserves recognition, not dismissal. She handed him a sealed folder marked with presidential security classifications. Complete assessment and implementation requirements. All changes must be operational within 72 hours. A Phoenix security team will arrive tomorrow to assist. Yes, Director. The automatic ma'am that would have followed 20 minutes earlier was now replaced with her proper title. As Maya walked toward the waiting helicopters, she observed how completely the base personnel's demeanor had changed. The dismissive glances had been replaced by respectful acknowledgement. Some offered subtle nods of recognition, others straightened imperceptibly as she passed. Inside the lead helicopter, a presidential aide studied his secure tablet. Was the field assessment necessary, Director? We could have ordered compliance after your Pentagon briefing. Maya watched through the aircraft window as Stone gathered his officers, already beginning the implementation of critical security changes. People reveal their true capabilities when they believe no one important is watching, she said quietly. The vulnerabilities weren't just in their systems, they were in their command culture. And your assessment of General Stone? He'll either evolve into a better commander after today, or demonstrate that he needs replacement. Her tone suggested this outcome had been part of her evaluation all along. Either way, Fort Apache Junction will be secure. As the helicopters disappeared into the storm, Stone watched them fade into the distance, clutching the classified folder. His expression held a mixture of humiliation and newfound respect, and perhaps something else, the recognition that he had witnessed power wielded with surgical precision. 3 months later, Maya stood in a different Pentagon briefing room, addressing 37 base commanders whose installations had undergone similar Phoenix assessments. The atmosphere was tense, many of the officers still processing their own encounters with unannounced operational evaluations. I understand your concerns, Maya began, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had commanded respect in the world's most dangerous situations. 3 months ago, I stood where General Stone is now, watching accomplished military leaders struggle with the reality that their security assumptions were fundamentally flawed. She activated the room's display screen, showing statistics from the 37 assessments. Every installation failed in at least 3 critical areas. Not because of incompetence, but because effective security requires constant evolution. Threats don't announce themselves with recognizable signatures. They exploit the gaps between what we expect and what actually exists. The transformation that followed would reshape military security protocols for the next decade. But it began with a woman standing silently in the rain, dismissed as irrelevant by those who failed to recognize that the most dangerous threats and the most effective solutions often came disguised as something unremarkable. Sometimes the person you dismiss might be the one who saves you from dangers you never saw coming. Sometimes authority doesn't announce itself with uniforms and ceremonies. And sometimes the most important conversations happen when no one thinks anyone important is listening.